3. I'm Joe Sanak, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice that you absolutely love. We want you to have a private practice that has all of that has the operations, the marketing, the networking, but we also want you to love it. And sometimes what that means is stepping out of the clinical, stepping into something different while you're doing the clinical, maybe in place of the clinical. Back in 2019, that's when I eventually sold mental wellness counseling and decided I'm going to do the consulting and podcast full time. Just do that, run full tilt towards it. I had been concurrently, probably from 2009 until 2012 was doing the practice and a full-time job. And then in 2012 added the podcast and all that in there as well. So I was doing the private practice, my full-time job, and doing the consulting and podcast. That was a lot to juggle. And then eventually shed the full-time job, and then just did the practice and the podcast for a while, and then eventually shed the practice. So we go through lots of iterations in our life, and we want to just spotlight those kind of stories here. That's something that's okay. It's not like, my parents who could work in the school system for 40 years, get a pension, and then afford a house. That's just not what most of us are able to do anymore. And so we have to reinvent ourselves. We also have the luxury of being able to reinvent ourselves and say, okay, I just don't like that anymore. I think about my grandpa who worked at GM for his whole career, literally would work, Monday through Friday, come home, and then there was the Sanok country store that he worked at till like 9 p.m. So the man would get up at like 5 a.m., go work at GM, come home and work at the Sanok country store. And then the only day he got off was on Sunday. And then he spent that with church and going and seeing families. Like, he didn't have a lot of choice. We have a lot of choice now through technology, through the way the world has shifted, to be able to say, okay, I don't like that anymore, or I'm just personally shifting in a different direction, and that's okay. So I love when there's stories of people that have said, yeah, I used to do some of these things, but actually I want to do something else, which is why I'm so excited to have a longtime friend of the show, friend of Practice of the Practice, friend of the Practice Academy. Wendela Whitcomb Marsh is an award-winning author, TEDx speaker, and host of the podcast Amplifying Autism. Now in her 70s, she is retired, pivoted, and started something new many times, and her adventures continue. Wendy, welcome back to the show.
Joe, it is always a delight to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you have been in so many of our communities, Audience Building Academy, the Pod
Yeah.
Plan. You've been in the Practice Academy, launching your practice back in the day. You've been on the show talking about autism. You've written books on autism. I mean, I just love that you are a part of the Practice of the Practice community. You've even come to Traverse City and hung out in my living room.
It was so much fun, and
Yeah,
I've
we got to
learned
celebrate
so
your
much.
birthday.
That's right. I turned 70 at your house. That was
That's it.
fun.
Yes, it's so fun. So fun. Well, I am so excited to talk about amplifying autism. I think there's such a great space for this podcast. Let's just start with transitions. I know a lot of this work you've done, whether it's starting the practice, whether it's moving into writing more, happened actually after you retired. So, what did you do for most of your career for people that didn't maybe hear those other episodes? Then let's talk about that post-retirement life that you've created.
Yeah, well, like your folks, I had a 40-year career in education. The first half, I was a special ed teacher. Went back to school. The second half, I was in educational psychology and focusing on autism in young children. But I retired. Excuse me. I know you can edit that out.
We sure can.
After 40 years, when I retired, I didn't really know if I would do very much. And for a short while, I played a lot of video games, uh, and that gets old.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd write a book and see a few clients. Well, I've written 10 books now, and through your programs, I went from seeing a few clients to having a group practice, and then retired again. Now, each time I retired from teaching, from educational psychology, and from the practice, I thought, this is going to be so sad. You're really going to miss the kids if you're not in the classroom. But such was not the case.
Mm.
I each time the new thing has been really exciting. And sure, I miss the people in each of the places that I have retired from. But when there's new work to do, it's time to just go on and do the new work. Now, from our time in Audience Building Academy, you used to tell me, you should start a podcast. And I used to say, no, I will never do my own podcast. I'll be on your podcast, I'll be on other people's podcasts. But I thought I never would. And now I am, and I love it. We're going live end of January 26th. And writing books. I love writing books. One book was just not enough for me. And it's all about autism. My late husband, two of our three kids were all late diagnosed autistic folk. And that, I used to work with kids, as I mentioned, but the kids are going to be okay. There's a whole lot of people focusing on autistic children. There's a lot of work being done to support them. Very little for autistic adults, and especially late diagnosed. If people didn't know that they were autistic, then people kind of think, well, you must be fine then, you need nothing. But they do need support, just like anybody.
Yeah, I just today had coffee with a friend who I've been supporting as his wife has been diagnosed with autism, which has given them a lot of clarity. But it's also kind of turned their world upside down as to like, what does this mean? And some of these things that maybe he thought were unchanged or were changeable are now probably unchangeable. They're just like kind of how she is. When you just think about adult autism, what are just some of the things that either as clinicians or even as just friends of people that are late diagnosed that we should know? I want to talk about the podcast for sure, but
Well,
just
yeah.
what are some of those things that are really important for late diagnosed autism?
Well, I love that question because so often neurotypical people or people among the neuroprivileged,
Mm,
we don't really know what it's like. I mean, a loud noise will startle me. I don't like it, and my heart will pound for a few seconds. Or if I'm driving and I almost hit a dog, I might even have to pull over, and my heart will pound for a minute. But autistic folk, if they've had some experience, even if it's just their phone ringing when they didn't expect it to ring, that same physical response of the heightened, the blood, the breathing, the whole fight, flight, or freeze, that can go on for hours or days, depending on what triggered it, what kind of thing it was. So they can't just get over a thing. If you say, oh, we were going to go to this restaurant with these people, but you know what? These other people can come, but they like the other restaurant. So now we're going to change it. Well, that is not okay for your autistic friends. They really can't. They're not being difficult. They're not being stubborn. They're not being babies about it. They truly cannot change the way their brain fits in that groove of we have a plan. And okay. And also, for many of them, they don't have the control of making their facial expression do a certain thing, like telling it when to feel sad or when to feel happy. And their face may have nothing to do with what they're feeling or what they're saying. And they're so often misunderstood. People say, well, I know you're really mad at me. It's like, I'm not mad at you. See, I can tell when you're mad at me. But you know what? Listen to my words. Don't listen to my face. My face does not know what it is talking about. And that can be hard for couples in particular because we often read into those little subtle things. And in the neuromajority, that works. But if you're married to someone who's autistic, believe their words. Don't worry about their facial expression if it doesn't look the way you think it should.
mm. What is, and I know that it's anytime we generalize, we miss a large portion of folks, but when it comes to kind of triggers in adults, how does that look different for adults with autism compared to maybe children with autism? Because I think most of us, in our training kind of know what some degree of autism looks like in kids, depending on
Yeah.
our internships, experience, classes, all of that. But in adults, a lot of times that was never even covered in graduate school. So, like, what does that look like in regards to when someone feels triggered? Like you were talking about loud noises. For other adults that maybe have been masking for much of their life, like, what does that look like?
Rather than looking like an outburst or covering ears and screaming, it might be freezing, becoming catatonic for a period of time. And no one can tell by looking at them because their facial expression may look completely normal, but they cannot move or speak for some time. And then people think, oh, you're just ignoring me. You're just giving me the silent treatment. which it's not that. Um, and also many have in their masking, which started as a survival strategy, they may have taught themselves to make or fake eye contact very well. When they go to answer questions about, are you autistic? If someone asks them, if their therapist says, do you have a problem with social interaction? They may think, I don't have a problem with social interaction. I avoid it. And then they'll say no. Or they might think, oh, I used to, but now I have a system for it. Anytime anybody has a system for something, it means there was a problem. But their answer will still be no, because they created elaborate scripts and routines and rituals to help them get through the typical things that you and I don't even think about. Going to a grocery store, interacting with the person who's giving us our coffee in the drive-through. I never have a script for that. I just fake it. But a lot of people have to really work at every single one of those, and it won't show when they're talking to their therapist.
Yeah. I'm wondering, there's all sorts of, and I don't want to call them to diminish them, like fad diagnosis, but we see bubbling up of certain diagnosis as there's more identification around it. We saw ADHD and Ritalin with, particularly boys in the 80s and 90s. We saw
Yes.
bipolar really kind of, amplify throughout the 90s and 2000s. Now it feels like,
Mhm.
everyone's ex is a narcissist. Everyone's ex has a personality disorder. Autism, I think, is one of those that it's getting a lot more attention and funding. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts in regards to where autism is being maybe labeled inappropriately? And I think when people have that mind, then they throw it all out. And compared to just like,
Yeah.
there's lots of other areas where it's like, it's great that adults are able to now identify as autistic because it gives them labels,
Mhm.
it gives them treatment, it gives them tactics where I'm not alone anymore. Like,
Yes.
where does that line fall for you in regards to, a kind of emerging diagnosis that's getting a lot more attention than maybe it did 10 years
Yeah.
ago?
I think we're getting better at identifying it. And I think, and the DSM has changed over the years. And that's opened up. I mean, the DSM is not a great document, but it is the one that we have. Um, so because of changes in that and in the assessment process and the understanding of it, we are able to identify a lot more people. Um, I think, I mean, this of course is not like a diagnostic answer, but as a neurotypical person, I don't spend time wondering if I'm autistic. I just don't think about it the way I don't think about eye contact. I have no plan for whether I'm going to make eye contact. And right now, I'm just looking at a little camera dot. So it's easy. There's no eye contact. But um, when people spend a lot of time worrying about whether or not they have autism and they go online and search and search and search and they recognize themselves, um, chances are it's autism. I'm not diagnosing it based on that, but I think there just is a lot more of it is recognized. And we have the late diagnosed high masking people who look like everyone else. And the fact that it's inheritable, it's genetic. You're going to have people who are attracted to and marry someone else who's like them, and they're going to have kids. And those kids are going to be attracted to somebody that shares their similarities, and they're going to have kids. And we're just going to have more. That's
Hmm.
just the way that goes.
Yeah. Well, I want to shift gears into
Yeah.
kind of the seeds of the Amplifying Autism podcast. So, when did you start making that shift from, no, Joe's crazy, I'm never starting a podcast? Like, how did you start to think, I actually think I could jump into the podcast world?
Well, I'd been on a lot. You challenged me one time to go be on 50 podcasts as a guest. And I kind of threw myself into it. And I don't know if I made 50, but I made a lot more than if you hadn't challenged me. Um, and one thing that I realized is kind of missing is we don't hear enough about autistic authors and podcasters. No, I'm not autistic. And my publisher would not want to hear me say this, but I say it all the time. If you want to learn about autism, read autistic authors. I mean, you can also read my books, but let's start with autistic authors. Listen to autistic podcasters, follow autistic influencers online, and learn from people who really know. And I realized that if I had a podcast where I interviewed autistic authors, podcasters, CEOs, speakers, um, that would be a chance to elevate them and get their voices heard. And that seemed like a better idea to me than to have a podcast for me. And then I found a couple of amazing engineers, a father and son team, and they do the part that I cannot do or that I don't want to learn how to do, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's so good to have a team of people that do it better than you. To me, it's sort of like I think when I think about a renovation, I've renovated a couple houses. Like I can do the destruction side, but I'm not going to rebuild it because it's going to be done wrong, and then I'm gonna have to pay twice as much. So you have Temple Grandin, you've got
Yes.
Daniel Wendler, who's been a friend of our podcast,
Yeah.
a bunch of just amazing
Devin
autistic.
Price.
Yes,
Devin
who was just
Price.
on the podcast as well that we connected you
Yeah.
with. Um, Tell me about as you enter into these interviews, how are you finding your voice as an interviewer?
Well, what I'm interested in is how did their life change once they learned they were autistic? Because these are, like my family members, late diagnosed autistic folk. And that's something I think our listeners are interested in. What changes in your life? And so we talk about that. We talk about what they want to share. What's their book? What's their podcast? What's their program or whatever they want to elevate and amplify. And then, like you have your ending question, I have my asking them what advice they have for someone who is just now realizing that they're autistic. They might be where you, the guest, were 5 years ago, and what can you tell them from your experience? And that's been, I think it's helpful for our listeners.
Hmm. Now, where are you as you're doing these interviews, as you prepped for the show, as you're launching the show? Where are you finding the creativity, the I don't know, just like as someone who I know that has had so many ideas and keeps going after them, and I don't see retirement being sitting around for you ever. It's getting tired again. You're getting retired. So, uh, um, like, I guess maybe the question in there is like, where are you finding inspiration for your creativity?
That's an interesting question. I never thought about that. I do find that I'm enjoying my my engineers recommended that I do some solo episodes, and I thought this is all going to be about other people. But sure, we can sprinkle in some solo episodes or just be talking, and they're short because I don't want to spend a lot of time. But I'm enjoying talking about things like, are you a butterfly or a bear when it comes to social approach and avoidance? Or are you more of a turtle or a turtle dove when it comes to relationships? Are you hiding in your shell or are you flying out there? And to just have some topics of asking the listeners, where are you in your autism?
Hmm.
And the bottom line being, wherever you are, that's okay. You are great the way you are. There is nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with being autistic. And that's what I want people to know. And that's what I'm excited about telling them.
Yeah, I love it. Well, you've also been doing a challenge of pushing yourself onto TikTok. So, tell me about that and what you found exciting, frustrating, all of it as you've just pushed yourself to do more social media on TikTok.
Well, some friends I met through the pod plan, they said, let's do a challenge. It felt like a dare. Let's post every day for 30 days. Let's post something on TikTok. I had never even looked at TikTok. I did not know anything about TikTok, but I'm game. Okay, everybody's doing it. I'm going to do it. And for 30 days, I posted every single day. And that was October of 26. I'm not posting every day
2025,
anymore.
right?
Oh, yeah, it was 25.
Look, you're living in the future, Wendy.
Time. Time. Yes, it's great. It's got to be better. And at first I thought I had to do a video every time. And I have two ways of doing a video. There's one in my car where I just have a moment of nobody else is in the car with me, but I don't look very good. And I don't sound very good because I'm saying a lot. I don't have a script. And then there's me here in front of my desk. This is the desk I inherited from my mother, my roll top desk. It's where I write my books. It's where I do my podcasts and things. And then it's a little more planned. But then one day when I was in this 30 days, it got to the end of the day and I was already in my pajamas. I did not want to get dressed and do a video. So I did the thing where you have like a picture and then you put words on it. And it turns out people like that too. There's a lot of quotes that we can share that are inspiring or give hope at times when there's not a lot of hope. And if I can put a picture of a rose from my garden and a quote from William Stafford today, a wonderful poet, then hopefully that will help people. I'm not like internet famous. I'm not viral, but I like having the people that follow me and that I follow.
Yeah, how do you think that people, if they do a challenge like that, should be thinking through success? Like should they be saying, "Hey, I want to have this many followers," or maybe like when should people care about success and metrics, and when should people just follow the creativity and excitement?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I wasn't thinking too much about success on TikTok because I don't think I'm the kind of person that would be successful on TikTok, although I've met other little old ladies. So I'm not the only blue-haired little old lady. Well, I'm the only blue-haired one that I know. But for me, it was more, we're just doing this challenge. It'll stretch me a little bit. It'll be something new. One of the people in our group went viral with one of her things that she posted. It was like she thought it was no different from the other things, but for some reason it caught on. Mine have not, but I I don't feel bad about that. I do most days, I will go to the little TikTok studio where it tells you if you have little blue arrows going up, if it's better, and little gray areas going down if it's not. And for like a month, 2 months, it was always blue arrows going up, and I was going, oh, good for me. Blue arrows going up. And then I started having some gray arrows going down where it's like you had fewer uh, engagement. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
so what do I do? And then I'll do something else. I'll realize, well, I haven't posted in a while. And it's still more a game. I'm not I don't feel bad about myself. I like seeing the blue arrows up, but if I
Yeah,
don't
of
have
course.
this, like my life goes on.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's probably ancillary benefit to just being comfortable on camera as well. To say I'm testing content, I'm trying content, I'm putting ideas out into the world that I think
Mhm.
matter. Beyond just the vanity metrics of how many people look at or comment or like, there's a lot of probably personal development that comes through it. For you personally, just doing that 30-day challenge and then continuing with it, what have been some of the benefits that are beyond maybe just the metrics or getting people to listen to the podcast?
That's a good question. I think it's good for me as an old person. It's good for me to try new things, and I like doing that. Now I'm hearing about Substacks. I don't have a Substack. People I respect have Substacks. Do I want a Substack? Maybe I do. I don't know. I started to do a Pinterest and then I said, nope, not doing Pinterest. It wasn't easy. I can go from TikTok to Instagram and just like share on Instagram. But maybe Substack next. Do you have a Substack, Joe?
I don't. I hear a lot of people that are more like authors doing that. I'm
Oh,
seeing
I'm
that
an author.
it seems like it takes a lot of like kind of upkeep from what I see.
Mhm.
So I think we've found that the podcast is just like the single best way to get people to follow us, and then we just have the transcriptions from that. And so maybe we could repurpose some things. I just interviewed Andy Crestadina. That was in, let me look, episode. Oh man, when was that? Oh, that episode 1356. So just like a couple weeks ago. And he was talking about LinkedIn newsletters. And so that I'm exploring
Hmm.
that because I think LinkedIn for me is where we get a lot more people that kind of sign up for things. And it's definitely that kind of professional network. So I'm looking at that. But,
Yeah.
I tried TikTok for like 60 days doing that almost every day. And I got some followers and I had a couple of videos that went viral that we had over
Oh,
100,000 views. which was great. And it didn't translate into anything business wise. So I think
Uh,
understanding the goals for me of if I'm going to take time away from the family, if I'm going to make more content,
yeah,
what's it actually doing for the business, versus, sometimes you just try things for fun and you don't really care about the numbers. So,
yeah.
we're always trying stuff too. And it seems like as soon as you get it nailed, like, something switches, even with the TikTok change from being Chinese owned to American owned for that branch of it seems to have changed some of the algorithm. We're talking to a lot of people that are having less views than they used to,
Oh,
especially more progressive type people. So you never know. I mean, we do our best to keep up with it, but also I think a lot of marketing is spaghetti at the wall and it works for this month and it might not next month.
well, speaking of your podcast, as someone who started listening to you way back before I retired, it was close enough to the beginning where I could go back once I found you and listen to all of them from the beginning.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry. The first 10 were not
hey,
good.
but you know what? You got so much better.
I would like to think
Um,
so.
oh yeah, obviously, you did.
Well, and I
but
do think that
but yeah.
part of it when you make a lot of content is being more comfortable in your skin. For me, early on, when I go back and listen to those, there's such a like proving myself. Like, yeah, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this, and it's a very like immature early career kind of way of just thinking. And not that I'm never immature. I do improv comedy, but it's like I think just recognizing we're good enough how we are, and that the people that we're going to attract are going to be the people that like who we are, not because of all of our accolades or awards or things like that. It's that we're they're following our curiosity with us, and that's why I think now when I work with podcasters, I'm like, find that weird, like find those things that you really enjoy and talk about them. Like when you said video games, I'm like, for years I didn't play video games, and then in the last couple of years I got sucked into this game Skyrim and
Oh,
played that a lot. And now like, I wouldn't say beat it because it's one of those games you just can't beat. Like it's like never ending. But I've completed most of the missions. I've gone through it twice, and I'm like, I'm done with Skyrim.
yeah.
But there's people listening and be like, "Oh, I love Skyrim too," and they may reach out to me just over that or connect with me over
Oh,
that. So I think
nice.
I love that you're trying TikTok, trying the podcast, trying to just find where your voice is right now.
Yeah. And this is an aside, but you mentioned your improv, and I did improv in college, and so much fun. And there's a TV show that your kids are too old for, but mine are not, called Bluey, and it
Oh, they
and
love
the
Bluey. They still love Bluey.
same with us. But the thing about Bluey is, it's as if the rules for parenting include all the rules for improv. And those parents just commit to whatever the bit is. And so sometimes when they're doing that and they're doing improv, I'm thinking of you and your daughters. And I'm thinking, if you combined improv with parenting, that's Bluey.
Oh, improv parenting. I love it. Bring it all together. Well, Wendy, we always love having you on the show. If every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I would want to say, if you have an idea, go for it. You are never too old to pivot and pivot again. And if you're going to retire, fine, but don't be serious about retiring. Do something new. You can always retire from that if you don't like it, but you're never too old.
So good. Wendy, if people want to follow the podcast, listen to the podcast, learn about amplifying autism, where should we send them?
Um, my website is wendellawhitcommarsh.com, and the podcast is Amplifying Autism. And I will make sure that you get those links for the show notes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
It's interesting as I do even retirement planning and thinking about when would I want to retire. It's like I love the work I'm doing. I mean, there's parts of it that I don't always love. We always have things that we don't love as much. But, thinking ahead of how do we build careers that can adjust and change and that we can explore things so that we genuinely never grow old, that we enjoy the impact we're making on the world. I mean, that's one of the many things we try to do here is to, make your career be the thing that you really enjoy. Like there's no point in seeing those clients that you're done seeing. There was a point when as a young male therapist, I was highly sought after to work with teen boys that were really mad at the world. And I was really effective in that work. And there was a time when seeing kids after school didn't line up with who I wanted to be as a parent. I didn't want to work evenings anymore. And for a lot of these kids, it wasn't fair for them to then have to miss school to come in and see me. And I had to move past doing the good work that I was doing. And that was hard. But over and over in our careers, we're going to reshape who we are. We're going to look at, is this working anymore? And you have permission to shift gears. You have permission to leave the schools. You have permission to start a practice. You have permission to sell a practice. You have a permission to own a practice and not do the clinical work. Maybe just you're the owner and you make money off of it. You have permission to write books. You have permission to go after TED Talks. You have permission to go after bigger things than maybe you know that you can do. So if that's what you needed to hear today, I hope that you feel that permission from both me and Wendy as we dig into the next phases of both of our careers. Also, we could not do this show without our sponsors. Today, Alma is our sponsor. Alma helps empower you to confidently accept insurance. They're backed by an all-in-one EHR that simplifies all your scheduling and documentation and day-to-day practice operations. They have a network of engaged providers and free continuing ed resources. They honestly make it easier for you to have a thriving private practice you absolutely love. If you want to work with them or even just get a tour to see if they might be a fit, head on over to helloalma.com/Joe. Again, that's helloalma, ALMA.com/Joe. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.